Blossom Blossom. I am your host, Cassiopeia Fleur de la Coeur Flores. This is an F chord on my ukulele. And I'm playing an F chord because I effing love Shakespeare. All right, we're going to put this away. Let's get into our Shakespeare Shakedown with Romeo and Juliet. I'm going to be telling this story my way, okay? And it's going to be really from the point of view of Juliet. I think if you understand a few medieval factoids, a few medieval etiquette things, then you would understand why this story is such a tragedy. Medieval? Why do you say medieval? Isn't Shakespeare Renaissance? Yes, he's in the Renaissance time, that's true, but it's more likely that this play was set in the 1350s. And the reason I say that is because the plague went through Italy in the 1330s, and there is a reference to the plague in this play. And people's memories are pretty short, okay? So in the play, Mercutio dies about halfway through, and he uses this curse of a plague on both your houses. He's cursing both the Montagues and the Capulets, these two families, because he's best friends with Romeo Montague. And Mercutio is dying as the direct result of the bullshit that has been going on between the Montague family and the Capulet family. And it's been going on for a long time. We hear about this in the opening lines of the play. Two houses of equal stature, probably mid-level nobility, and they've been feuding for so long that they've forgotten what the feud is about. They just know that they're supposed to hate the other family, and that's unfortunate. It's gone on so long. It's not just the family members; it's everybody in their employment, right? So these are two noble families. They're probably mid-level nobility. They would both have villas. And this is Verona, okay? It's Italy. It's Verona. The villas are low. Maybe you'd have a second story, but not anything beyond that. So let's not get overexcited when Romeo jumps the garden wall and hangs out. It's not a huge feat of physical dexterity to do this and to make his way to Juliet's balcony. Her balcony would not be that high. Anyway, back to why we think it's around the 1350s. The plague went through Italy in 1330s. Mercutio is dying, and he says, "A plague on both your houses." And he says it twice. That's how emphatic he is. That's how upset he is at both of these families. He wants a plague to descend upon their homes. And in order for a threat to hold any kind of weight, it has to have a reasonable probability of actually happening. So if this was in the 1500s, well, the plague was 200 years ago. How likely is that to happen? It doesn't hold a lot of weight. But if it was 1350, maybe 20 years or so after the plague had ripped through Italy, it would mean something. And the reason I'm choosing the 20-year mark is because people's memories are pretty short. It is 2025 right now, and COVID was in 2020. Okay, that was our pandemic. That was our kind of plague, our modern time plague. And it's been 5 years, and people have completely forgotten about it. Well, not everybody has forgotten about it. Those people suffering from long effects of COVID, they're not forgetting about COVID. And those people who received vaccine injuries from getting vaccinated against COVID, well, those people certainly aren't forgetting about COVID. But for the most part, I would say a large global population is just treating COVID like a little speed bump. No big deal. That happened a couple years ago. It's so long ago, we don't think it matters anymore. And that's just 5 years. So let's imagine that this is in the 20-year mark past the plague, where the weight of that curse would still mean something. You know, if you were to curse me today and say, "Oh, Kiki, I hope the fleas of 1,000 camels infest your wig." Well, I'm not worried about that at all. I live in North America. How are you going to get the fleas of 1,000 camels to me? Like, how's that even going to happen? Right? I mean, are you going to Amazon that to me? I don't think so. So that curse doesn't mean anything. But if you curse me with the ancient curse from Greece, an ancient Greek curse, "May you live in interesting times." Well, I feel like that already happened to me. Somebody's already cursed me that way because I'm certainly living in some interesting times. And sometimes I'm not okay with it. So yeah, sometimes I feel like I've been cursed to live in this interesting time. Anyway, let's get back to the time of Romeo and Juliet. All right, opening scene, it's disclosed that Romeo and Juliet are going to die. Right in the first 30 seconds of the play, you find that out. So there's no expectation of surprise. Like, there's no reasonable expectation of surprise that you find out that they die in the end. The only question is how? How do they die? What happens to them? And I think I really want to tell this from Juliet's point of view so that you understand just how no-win situation she was in at the end. I think people overlook this a lot, and they just think, oh, she's so sad because of Romeo. And of course, that's a massive reason. But we'll get into it. All right, opening scene. It's in a marketplace, and here are servants of the Capulets and servants of the Montagues, and they are there in the market. The Capulet servants are there to pick up the last-minute party items for their big feast that night. And the Montagues are just out and about. So even the servants of these households know that they are supposed to hate the other. And the Capulets pick a fight. They do it in such a sneaky, funny kind of way, though. These two guys are walking around, they see the Montagues, and they start pretending like, you know how you would scratch your nose and extend your middle finger, and in that way you're giving someone the finger, but you can, oh no, I was just scratching my nose or scratching my chin. Well, the Capulet servants are doing the medieval equivalent of pretending to pick something out of their teeth and then biting their thumb and dragging their thumb out between their two front teeth kind of violently. This gesture of biting your thumb and taking it out of your teeth violently is considered extremely rude. It's the equivalent, or it's the ancient equivalent of the flipping someone the bird. So the Capulets do this. The Montagues are like, did you just flip us off? And the Capulets respond so juvenilely, like, oh, well, I didn't flip you off, but I'm flipping someone off. And if you're walking in front of that, then I guess it's you. Anyway, of course, like, they antagonize the Montagues into a fight. And boom, they're fighting, and they've got their swords out. So around the 1350s, we are going a little bit more away from these giant broadswords. And in Italy at the time, the swords are getting skinnier, right? We're not doing the hack and chop job. Now we're getting into fine art of fencing, and these lovely smaller swords, these rapiers, are coming into play here. And a lot of the swords would be pretty because the blacksmith who is making the sword would be wanting to add his mark. And the more intricate the design of the hilt or the handle, then the more money you can ask for it, right? So these guys are fighting with their swords, and more Montagues show up, and Benvolio, he's a Montague, he's trying to break up the fight. But he's not going to put his hand in between guys who are fighting with swords. He'll be cut to ribbons. So he's going to have to take his sword out and try and bash those swords down. And he's saying, stop it. Let's not fight. And at this moment, here comes Tybalt. And Tybalt is a Capulet, okay? He is the nephew of Lord Capulet. He's the cousin to Juliet, but he lives in their household, which you can extrapolate from this. One of two things have happened. He's either been orphaned, or his father has died and he's been sent to live at his uncle's place, or he's been sent there for education purposes, right? His family's still intact, but he's sent off to get some noble learning. And because of how Tybalt comes on the scene so ready to skewer any Montague he sees, and like, in fact, he's having this conversation, he's like attacking Benvolio, and Benvolio's like, no, please help me stop this, like, let's seek some peace. And Tybalt's immediate response is, peace, I hate the word. So he's not interested in peace. He's so bent on killing the Montagues. I think it's kind of reasonable to think that maybe Tybalt's dad died as a result of the feud between these two people. And he's got such a hate on for Mercutio and Romeo that it's likely he believes that these two are maybe, if not responsible for his father's death, like just the fact that they are these high-ranking Montagues, like he just wants to kill them because his heart's so full of hate and bent on revenge. So the fight gets worse, and Tybalt is actually attacking Benvolio, and it's getting really bad. And now everyone's arriving, like Lady and Lord Capulet have come, Lady and Lord Montague have come, and it's a huge brawl. It's in the middle of the market. You got to think about what's actually happening, right? Big sword fight in a small space. Everyone's trying to sell their stuff, right? You got your poor guy with the turnip cart, the lady with the flowers. Like, things are just being knocked over. Like, you're probably running away. Like, it's a madhouse. It's absolute chaos. And then the prince shows up, and he's like, stop it. Enough of this bullshit. And of course, everyone stops immediately because it's the prince. Like, if you don't, you're going to be in serious trouble. And the prince is sick of it. He gives this little speech about, like, I'm tired of this feud. You guys have got to, like, sort it out. And if you guys fight again, if I hear anything about fighting again in the streets, or if anyone gets murdered, if everyone gets dead, fuck around and find out, okay? I'm dead serious. This is just bullshit. So then he calls out each family. He's like, Capulet, you come with me right now. I'm going to talk to you about this. Montague, you come later, and I'm going to talk to you about this. So they're embarrassed in the middle of the street there. And now we find out that Romeo's not a part of this kerfuffle. But his mom is like, where is he? Where is he? Because she's a little bit worried that he was in the fight. And Benvolio's like, no, I was actually coming to the market to find him. I don't know where he is. And she's like, well, go find him. So now we're introduced to Romeo for the first time. And he wasn't at the fight in the marketplace. He's a different kind of Montague. He's actually moping. He's sad. He's in love with this woman, Rosaline. And she's rejected him. She's a little bit older than him. He's desperately trying to get her affections. Like, he thought they were kind of going out, and then she's like, no, we're not. And he's like, oh man, oh no. He's heartbroken, and he can't get her out of his mind. He wants to get back together with her. So he's hanging outside of her place because he cannot go in. She's a distant cousin to Juliet. So there's probably a little bit of that Capulet. Shouldn't really be with her, but it's medieval etiquette. He can't go in. He can't just walk in and knock. Hi, is Rosaline home? I want to talk to her. That's not cool. That would not be acceptable. So he's hanging outside of her place, just hoping she's going to leave, hoping she's going to go to the market, hoping she's going to go to church, just so he can have a moment and talk to her. What ends up happening, though, is a servant from the Capulets is coming with a list of people he is supposed to invite to a fancy dress party at the Capulets that night. Only this poor servant can't read. And he's not going to tell his master that he can't read. He's been released from the villa and, like, out in the town. He's taking advantage of this. But he comes across Romeo, and there's a cute little exchange between them. And Romeo ends up reading the note for the servant. And in this way, this is how Romeo finds out that Rosaline has been invited to this fancy dress party. And it's not just a regular party. It is a masquerade. So he's like, oh my gosh, this is brilliant. I would normally never be able to go into the Capulet's place ever for fear of death, but I can wear a mask, I can sneak in, and I can talk to Rosaline, and I can get her back. And Benvolio, now Mercutio's arrived, and these two guys are like, yes, this is a great idea. We should definitely go to this party, but not so that you can get back together with Rosaline. Forget about her. You should set yourself up with somebody else. There's going to be hundreds of girls there. And it's true. This party would have been months and months and months in the making, because you don't just spontaneously have a medieval feast, or you don't spontaneously have a Renaissance feast. It takes some time and prep to get all the food you need, all the alcohol you need, to send out the invitations to the hundreds of people that you're going to be inviting to this party. And this party is not just any old, just like, oh, hey, I feel like having a get together. No. This party has an extra layer of importance. This party is to introduce Juliet Capulet to the prince's cousin, Paris. So remember, we said that these families are on equal footing? Well, Mercutio is actually kinsman to the prince. So the Montagues have a little higher status, tiny bit higher status than the Capulets, because of this friendship between Mercutio and Romeo and the relation between Mercutio and the prince. But he's a kinsman, which suggests he's a very distant cousin. He's not given the title cousin, right? But Paris is given the title cousin, which means he's probably very close to the prince. And the prince is already married, so the Capulets can't marry Juliet to the prince. Next best thing is the next available bachelor in that royal line, which is the cousin to the prince. So the Capulets are throwing this party for the express purpose of having Juliet meet what they are considering her future husband, Paris, the cousin to the prince. Now, what Romeo doesn't know is that this is probably why he doesn't know this is why the party is happening. And this is very likely why Rosalind has rejected him. It's not because she doesn't want to be with the handsome, young, sensitive, emo Romeo. We heard about his reputation. Like, he's not like the other Montagues, right? He wasn't in the market. He wasn't involved in the fight. He's a romantic. He's a guy that writes poetry. He's a guy that looks up at the stars. You know, that's who he is. We've already heard this about his character, and we see how lovesick he is about Rosalind. We see how excited he is about sneaking into this party to talk to her. But everybody at that time, any medieval house, they're going to always try and elevate their status. So if Rosalind was a cousin to Juliet, that household is also going to try and elevate their status. They're definitely going to that party, and they're definitely going to try and get Rosalind to meet with Paris, because it's not written in stone that the prince's cousin is going to marry Juliet. This is an introduction. And if the prince's cousin agrees to marry Juliet, it's a done deal. But he has to like her. So Rosalind's family is probably telling her, you cannot be with Romeo because you need to go to this party, and we got to cross our fingers that Paris likes you more than he likes Juliet. All right. So we know that Romeo and his friends are going to go to the party, and now we meet Juliet for the first time. And it's midday, and she's just finding out about this party. Her mom comes to her and basically says, good news, hey, we're having this big party tonight. How do you feel about marriage? And Juliet's like, I'm excited about this party. What the heck's up with marriage? What? I'm not really interested. And Juliet's mom's like, well, too bad, because we're expressly having this party to introduce you to Paris. And if all goes well, there's some wedding bells, and you guys are going to get married. And Juliet's like, oh, I'm not into that. And her mom's like, well, that's just too bad, because women your age are already married, already popping out kids. And Juliet's only 13. She's about to be 14. There's a conversation where we find out her age. She's like 2 weeks away from being 14. So she's like, no, I'm not into getting married. But her mom's like, too bad. And then there's this comment about the prince. There's nothing, or the cousin to the prince. There's nothing about the comment that suggests that the cousin, Paris, is a bad guy, but it kind of suggests that maybe he's not good looking. And she's like, have a look on him, and if you think you could be happy, just, let us know. We're hoping that's the case for you. Not like he's a monster, watch out. More like see if you can find it in your heart to be happy with this guy. Like, look on him and see if you can do it. So it almost suggests that he's kind of ugly. And Juliet's like, well, whatever. But she's excited about this party. And she would be. She's 13. She's almost 14. It's probably one of her first parties. It's a masquerade ball. She's going to be wearing a gown. It's very exciting. All right. Fast forward. Night of the party, right? Fast forward to that night. And Romeo and his friends have come a little late to the party on purpose, because they don't want to risk being seen and recognized. So they're waiting for people to have a few drinks, get a little more relaxed, pay a little less attention to them, and they show up. And Romeo has it in his mind that he's going to find Rosalind to convince her, come back with me. And as he's looking around, boom, he sees Juliet. And it's like, it's lightning for him. He can't believe how beautiful she is, It is the east and Juliet is the sun. She's teaching the stars to burn. Like he's stunned by her beauty, and that she's this beautiful light. And he's just staring at her. And you got to think of what's happening with her, right? So this is halfway through the party for her. She's probably already had a few dances with Paris. Okay. And the kind of dances that these people would be having at this time are palm to palm, walking around each other, right? Dresses are heavy. They're made out of wool and brocade and things like this, very heavy. You're not shaking your booty. You're not waving your hands in the air like you just don't care. But at this time in medieval fashion, the ladies of Verona were wearing a new type of dress. They had these loose, billowy sleeves, like long bell sleeves. And when you would raise your hand up, the bell sleeve would fall down. And the only thing between you and your man partner would be a small, like a little thin chemise. So this was kind of exciting. And this was the kind of dance that Juliet would have had with her dancing partners. The other fun fact about the little chemise is that there would be a slit here so that you can get in and out of this chemise. Your arm could get in and out. This would be important during eating, like you don't want to spill anything. These dresses are passed down from generation upon generation. So you're definitely going to be sneaking your hand out of that chemise while you're going to the washroom and while you were eating. And sometimes in medieval life, these young girls with these long bell sleeves, they would be covering that chemise. But when they're dancing, it would fall down. And if they got out of that chemise, then they would have skin-to-skin contact with their male dance partners. And it would be very scandalous. It would not be a very ladylike thing to do in medieval times. But I like to think that this is the kind of skin-to-skin dance that Juliet has with Romeo, because maybe she's sitting there and she's fidgeting with her sleeve. I don't know, but he sees her, he's stunned by her beauty, and he comes up to her, and in his approach to her, he takes his mask off because he doesn't want to frighten her. And he takes his mask off and he approaches her, and he's just like, oh my gosh, you're like a holy relic. He describes her in religious terms, and they press their palms together, and then there's this really witty, charming bit by Romeo, and he convinces her that their palms are just like lips and they should do the same. and they have a smooch. It's really great before their kiss, because Juliet, she knows that she wants this kiss. She does. Like, they've had this little exchange, and she desperately wants to kiss him. He's really good looking, but she knows that she's probably being watched. Even if they're a little bit off to the side from the party, she's the daughter of the house, and she is there to meet her husband. Her family would be paying attention to her. She's got a chaperone. She's probably being watched. So she basically says to Romeo, like, I can't move, but I super do want you to kiss me. And he's like, yeah, no problem. I'll come to you. And so he does. He leans in and smooches her. And it's love. It's absolute love. It's the kiss of true love. And they have this amazing kiss, and afterwards, like, there's a funny little part by Juliet where she's like, do it again. And so they do. It was really, really cute. And then her chaperone is sent to go get Juliet, and Juliet runs away, but without knowing who Romeo is. They haven't figured out who each other are yet. They've just like had this little moment, and Romeo asks the chaperone, who's that? And he finds out, it's the daughter of the house, and he's at the Capulets, and he's devastated because he's madly in love with her. He's forgotten about Rosalind, and he's just like, he's in for Juliet now, and it's devastating. He's like, how can this possibly be? I've just met the most beautiful woman. I've met the woman of my dreams. She's smart, and she's funny, and she's a great kisser. And how can she be my enemy? And he's mopey at this point. He's like, oh no, he's forgotten to put his mask back on, hasn't he? And guess who sees him? Tybalt. Yep. And Tybalt loses his mind. But Tybalt is bound by honor and duty just as much as anyone else in medieval times. And he knows that even though this is a great offense to him that a Montague is at the Capulets' party, even though this offends him to his core, he goes to his uncle first because he knows he can't make a scene, right? This is a party where Juliet is supposed to be meeting the cousin to the prince. Anybody who's anybody is at this party, including the prince, right? So you can't really make too much of a scene, but he can't believe that Romeo's there. So he goes up to his uncle, like, you got to do something about this. This is awful. Like, look, there's Romeo. Mr. Capulet's like, Romeo? Oh, well, we don't care about him. We know about him, right? He writes poems. He looks at the stars. Like, we're not worried about Romeo. But if it was Mercutio, I mean, that would be a problem. And Mercutio was there, and he was drinking at the bar, and he's having a great time, but he's not taking his mask off. He knows not to do that. He's having a great time. He's pounding back all the alcohol. We know that because he gives like this big drunk speech afterwards when they're trying to find Romeo. And he's totally drunk. He's had a great time at that party. Anyway, Tybalt wants his uncle to end the party, and the uncle's like, no, we can't do that. We can't cause a scene. It's too important of a party, so just calm yourself down. And Tybalt would not be calmed down. He's like, well, if you're not going to do something about it, I'm going to do something about it. Murr, murr, murr. And just like the uncle, Mr. Capulet, is like, sit down. You have forgotten who you are. You are not the lord of this place. I am the lord of this manor. You're going to do as I say, and you're not going to fuck this up for our family. Sit down and calm your tits. But now, maybe Lord Capulet's realizing, I bet people just saw me yell at Tybalt. All right, okay, you know what? It's getting late. It's so late, it's early. So let's call the party. Like, everybody, you gotta go, right? So everyone leaves. In the meantime, as everyone is leaving, Juliet, she's back with her chaperone, and she's probably shaking in her boots. She must be desperately hoping that no one saw that, because she is supposed to be set up. And it would not go over well, especially if Paris saw her kiss Romeo. That would be really bad. So she's like, oh my gosh. But she's in love, right? She's 13 and she's madly in love, and she's trying to figure out who Romeo is. But she's trying to be like, well, who's that guy in the wolf mask? And who's that guy with the feather head? And then she finds out Romeo is Romeo Montague, and she's like, oh no, my only love sprung from my only hate. So she's devastated, right? She's in love with this guy. He's in love with her. And of course they're in love. They're two teenagers. She's 13. He's like 15, 16. They've had one dance and 2 kisses. It's the end of the world. Of course they're in love. Romeo doesn't go home after the party. He's so gobsmacked by his new situation. He's trying to figure out a way to be with Juliet. He can't believe his luck. And he doesn't leave the party. He actually jumps the garden wall and starts walking around in the garden. Mopey McMoperson. Okay. And he's kicking rocks in the garden. And Juliet's in her room, and she's like, oh man, I'm super in love. And he's in the garden, oh man, I'm super in love. And she needs to get some air, right? She's thinking about things, and she needs to get some air. She's seen her life like just slip away from her, I'm sure. She's convinced herself she's in love with Romeo, but she must know she's promised to Paris. And Paris has a little conversation with Lord Capulet, basically saying, yep, it's all good. I can't wait to marry your daughter. And Juliet doesn't know this yet, but she probably has an idea that she's supposed to get married. And it's going to happen quick. So she's like, oh my God, what do we do? What do we do with this? She's thinking out loud. And this is when she comes out with her most famous soliloquy. And it's so beautiful. And the message is so amazing. I think we need to hear it in the original Shakespeare. So we're going to get our beautiful Shakespeare book out, and we're going to flip it. Romeo and Juliet, Act 2, Scene 2. And Romeo is basically, he's hiding from his friends, and he's in the garden trying to work it out, and he sees her, and he can't believe his luck. Oh my gosh, there she is. See how she leans her cheek upon her hand. Oh, that I were a glove upon that hand, that I might touch that cheek. He's romantic, right? She's leaning against her balcony with her hand there, and he just wants to be the hand. He wants to touch her. It's lovely. It's a cute little thing. All right, here is Juliet, and she's coming to her soliloquy, right? Oh, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo? Deny thy father and refuse thy name. Or, if thou wilt not, be but my sworn love, and I'll no longer be a Capulet. What a great idea. She's 13, but she knows. The problem is his last name, right? She didn't know he was a Montague. He didn't act like a Montague. He was really kind to her. He came up and asked her permission to hang out with her and to have a little smooch. That's more than what Paris did. It was an expectation. It was like, yes, of course we're going to be dancing. Of course this is going to be happening. But Romeo asks her, and she's smitten by him. And she's realizing if he was any other person other than a Montague, this wouldn't be an issue. So she comes up with this idea. Get rid of your name, deny thy father, don't have your father's name. Or if that's not cool with you, I'll get rid of my name. I'll get rid of the Capulet, and we can be together. But you have to promise me that you love me, because otherwise I'm not going to do that shit. And Romeo, he hears her, and he's like, oh, shall I hear more, or shall I speak at this? But Juliet, she's working things out. She's a young lady on a soliloquy. She's working this out, and she's talking to herself. And I do this a lot, so I can appreciate Juliet. Here she says, "'Tis but thy name that is my enemy. Thou art thyself, though not a Montague." What's Montague? It's nor hand, nor foot, nor arm, nor face, nor any other part belonging to a man. Oh, be some other name. What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. So Romeo would, were he not Romeo called, retain that dear perfection which he owes without that title. Romeo, doff thy name, and for that name, which is no part of thee, take all myself. And that's a very bold statement from Juliet. That's basically saying, you can have me, not just my heart, my whole body. You can have me if you get rid of your name. It'll be no problem. And Romeo's in the garden and he's just heard, I'll sleep with you if you give up your name. And he's like, I take thee at thy word. Call me but love and I'll be new baptized. Henceforth, I never will be Romeo. And Juliet is like, who the fuck is in the bushes listening to me talk right now? Oh, excuse me. I'm so sorry. Let's do proper Shakespeare. What man art thou that thus bescreechest in the night, so stumblest upon my counsel? Basically like, what? Who are you? And he's like, by a name I know not how to tell thee who I am. My name, dear saint, this was reference back to their conversation at the dance, is hateful to myself, because it is an enemy to thee. Had I it written, I would tear the word. And Juliet basically says, oh my gosh, we've hardly had any time talking, but I totally recognize your voice. And now she knows that's Romeo. He knows, of course, she's Juliet. They know who each other are. And they make this pact. They both say, yes, I'm madly in love with you. And I promise I'm going to be true to you. And Juliet is seeing her world collapse. She's supposed to get married to Paris. She knows this. And so she says to Romeo, hey, you want to get married? She's hoping she can preempt this by like marrying Romeo and then they can run away together. And he agrees. He doesn't know about Paris, I don't think. She doesn't tell him. So it doesn't seem pretty obvious to me that he knows about this. But he's like, you know what? I'm in love with her. And yes, and I want to have sex with her. So yeah, I'll marry her. We'll run away. No big deal. This is great. So they agree to get married and they do the very next afternoon. They get married in secret. And this is wonderful. Except Mercutio and Benvolio, they're just sort of wandering around. And Tybalt is still pissed off from the night before at the party when the Montagues dared to come to the Capulets' party. So he's marching around. He's looking for Romeo. He comes across Mercutio and Benvolio. And he's like, hey, you guys are friends with Romeo. I want to talk to you. This is bullshit. I'm like, rah, rah, rah. And remember I said Mercutio and Tybalt, they kind of hate each other. There's been some talk, like Mercutio has mentioned a couple of times in the play already that Tybalt is a good swordsman, but he hates him. He's a jerk. But Mercutio still thinks he can take him. He's like, yeah, even though that guy's a really good swordsman, a precise, surgically precise swordsman, I think I've got a chance. And he and Tybalt fight. Mercutio's just like, he might be hungover, but he's still feeling kind of boastful. I don't know, but basically they get into it. Romeo comes and he's like, stop. Like, let's not do this. Like, Tybalt, I love you. And Tybalt's like, what the fuck? You don't have at you. Like, he can't. Could you imagine Tybalt? He's like, what do you mean you love me? Last week we were beating each other up and you hated me and I hated you. Like, this is crazy. What do you mean you love me? And he's so mad. So fight. And Mercutio is like, fight. And Romeo's like, no, don't do it. And unfortunately, Mercutio gets stabbed underneath Romeo's arm and Mercutio dies. That famous plague, right? You're a plague on both your houses. And it's just bad news all over the place. And now it's like, you got to think about what's going on for Juliet. She just gets the news that her new husband, that nobody knows about, except for the nurse, except for Juliet's chaperone and the friar that they managed to convince to marry them. No one else knows that they're married. So her nurse is like, oh, your cousin's dead and it's Romeo. And like the prince has decided. Remember we talked about the prince? The prince said if anyone is going to be fighting, there's going to be some consequences. Fuck around and find out. Well, the find out part is now you're banished. He kind of decided, okay, Tybalt killed Mercutio, and then Romeo, in a fit of rage over losing Mercutio, kills Tybalt. So Tybalt and Mercutio kind of cancel each other out, but Romeo needs to be punished for his violent behavior. And so the prince agrees not to murder Romeo, not to kill him, not capital punishment, but to banish him. And so Romeo thinks this is worse than death because Juliet's going to have a life without him. And he can't imagine this. And Juliet can't believe what's just gone on, right? Her cousin, whom she was raised with like a brother, has died, and her new secret husband has killed him, and she doesn't know what's worse. And now Romeo's going to be banished, so it's just awful for Juliet. And also she must also be thinking, now Romeo is banished, and even though I'm secretly married to him, they're going to make me marry Paris. Yeah. Because no one knows she's married to Romeo, and her parents are going to make her marry Paris. So she's bawling her eyes out. I don't blame her. She's like hysterical. And then her dad's like, good news, you're going to marry Paris in 2 days. And she's like, what? Like, she just can't. Oh, this poor girl, this poor 13-year-old girl, her whole world is collapsing. And she goes to the friar. She's like, I'm beside myself. I need help. How do I get out of this? How do I get out of this? This is terrible. And the friar takes pity on Juliet. He's like, you know what? Your love must be true. It must be absolute true love. Otherwise, you two wouldn't be going to the lengths you are to try and be together. So I'll tell you what. I'm going to drug you. I'm going to give you a drug. And it's going to put you into a coma. And everyone's going to think you're dead. But you're going to wake up about a day or so later. They're going to bring you to me like they brought Tybalt. And I'm going to pretend to prepare your body for the mausoleum. Don't you worry. But I'm going to help you wake up. Romeo, I'm going to send him a letter. He's going to know that the whole thing about the plan. He's going to come and get you. And then you guys can go run away and be together. And Juliet's like, phew. Oh, great plan. This sounds perfect. I just have to be brave and drink this liquid and really hope it doesn't kill me for real. So she goes home. She makes up with her dad. She had this big fight with her dad. I'm never going to marry Paris. And she makes up with her dad, says, I'm going to be an obedient child from now on. Don't you worry. Because she knows she's going to run away. So she wants to leave on good terms, right? And that night, the night before her wedding, she downs the drink, and the next morning, everyone thinks that she's dead. The friar has sent the letter to Romeo, except the letter gets waylaid. It gets delayed. Romeo's out of town. He's flipping out, though. He just can't, he doesn't know what to do. Maybe he understands that Juliet's going to have to marry Paris, and he's like, he starts to come back to town of his own volition. Okay, so he doesn't get the letter, doesn't know what's going on, doesn't know the plan, and he starts to come back to town. And in the morning, everyone finds out Juliet's dead. Benvolio finds out Juliet's dead. And Juliet's body gets brought to the friar. Benvolio runs into Romeo on the street and tells him the sad news. And Romeo flips out. Of course he does. And he runs to the friar and he's like, oh my gosh, is she here? Is she dead? Is this really happening? And the friar's just stepped out. He's like, maybe he's in the bathroom. Maybe he's in the outhouse. Who knows? But he's not there. And all Romeo sees is Juliet's body laid out. She still hasn't woken up. She's laid out and she's very pale and wan. Why so pale and wan, fond lover? Why so pale and wan? That is a John Suckling sonnet. But anyway, moving on from that. Juliet, she looks like death, and Romeo believes she's dead. He sees that she has this vial in her hand, clasped in her hand, and he tries to take some of that, thinking it's poison. But there's nothing left, so he's like, damn it. And he finds a bottle of poison, and he takes it, right? He's going to kill himself with this, because he can't imagine a life without Juliet. And for him, because he doesn't know the plan, he doesn't know that she's just in a little coma, it's the end of his world, and he kills himself. Because it really, think about this, right? He's been banished from his family, for sure. He can't come back to Verona no matter what goes on with Juliet. The prince has banished him. Coming back to the town would mean he's going to be killed. And now the love of his life is dead. Like, for him, at 15, 16, his world is over. I don't blame him. He's a very emotional kid. He's very emo. And he kills himself. And unfortunately, a couple minutes later, Juliet wakes up and she's like, oh no, oh my gosh. And she knows, like, he's really dead. He's drank some poison. He's probably bleeding out of his eyes, bleeding out of his nose. Like, it's probably quite obvious that he's dead. And she she can't believe what's just happened. Why did this happen? What happened to the letter? How come he doesn't know? Oh no. And now think about this scenario from Juliet's point of view. She has faked her own death to be with Romeo. There's no coming back from this. Like, there's not. It wouldn't matter if this play is set in the 1350s or if it was set in the 1600s. This young girl was dead, and now she's come back to life? Oh, I don't think so. You know what's going to happen to her? She's going to be treated as a witch and put up at the stake and burned alive. You know that to be true. And guess what? So does Juliet. P.S. Even if she was able to say, okay, well, I took this drug, like the friar helped me out, and I took this drug, and I was like, only like a little bit dead, like just like foolish dead, like fooling you dead. No big deal, okay? Even if that story were to be presented, she's still going to be thought of as a witch. And even if not, imagine Paris, the cousin to the prince. Do you think that's going to go over well? This young lady would rather kill herself than marry you. She pretended to kill herself the night before the marriage just to avoid marrying you. And I don't think that I don't think Paris could even get over, okay, well, she was in love with Romeo, and now that Romeo's dead, like maybe she'll be with me and this will be cool. No, it would be humiliating. The whole town will know what just happened. And Juliet's not going to come back from this. She will be punished and very likely burnt alive at the stake. So I don't blame her. I would rather stab myself in the heart than be tied to the stake. You would have to just seriously hope it was the smokiest of fires and that you died of smoke inhalation before the flames actually got to you. So I don't blame Juliet for killing herself. Honestly, it's really, what other choice does she have? And then at the end of the play, the narrator basically says, the families have come together because both kids have died, and then they bury the hatchet. Do you think that's likely? Do you think these families who've been warring for forever are like, oh, our two kids, like they fell in love and it was because of our fight that all this happened. Okay, love you now. Or okay, we're all good now. I don't know. I don't know if people have that amount of grace. I think that would take some therapy and some time. I think you can get there. I just don't think it happens 10 minutes after you find out your child killed themselves to be with the child of your enemy. But these lessons in the play are still relevant today. We still have families that fight keep feuds alive for 15, like going on 20 years, because each side is so righteous. Each side just doesn't want to listen to the other side. They're so hurt. They're so absorbed. Like they're so in their own hurt. They can't meet the other party halfway, which is too bad. There's a situation like that in my monkey sphere, which is just too bad. But anyway, that is it for our Shakespeare Shakedown on Romeo and Juliet. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it made you fall in love a little bit with that play. Now, normally the play takes about 2.5 hours to put on, and I've squashed this down into under 1 hour. So if you made it through the whole episode, good for you. If you had to break this up into a couple of sittings, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. It's a long episode. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me here at Fl'AwesomeBlossom. It's not always going to be stories like this. Next week, I'm going to tell you how I met my husband, because we are coming up on the time of year when we met, and it always makes me think of when I met him and that particular story. So until that time, I hope you go out and live your life in full Fl'AwesomeBlossom.